May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts this morning find their way into the heart of God. Amen. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on it being received for good or for evil in the superlative degree of comparison only. Charles Dickens wrote this opening paragraph for A Tale of Two Cities long ago, but these words could be written for us today, right? What an era we live in. The Amazon rainforest is on fire. People in need with no access to health care beg. Wealth inequality rises. The joblessness rates are just impossible. There are mass shootings. Hurricane Dorian leaves people stranded, and other weather systems are just out of control. There are more wars today than ever before, all at once, and the widespread destruction of our planet is so very heartbreaking. In the US, people are targeted because they are immigrants or Muslim or indigenous or gay or because they are poor. We've fallen into two Americas and dog whistle politics that polarize rather than unite us and render any forward movement an impossibility in the halls of Congress. Well, since Robin is on sabbatical, we'll just have to imagine her saying it, "These are hot mess times." And yet, we also somehow got out of bed this morning and we fed the cats. And we went to the Sterling Fair and we ate fried dough or cotton candy, and someone among us may or may not have spent $100 on a large, bigger than the child, purple stuffed unicorn. At the top of the Ferris wheel, the world below twinkled and little bright lights lit up everywhere, and tiny people held hands, and veal calves showed off their spots. There is such pain in the world, and yet each of us came here today to hug the people we missed and marvel at how the children grew so tall. Again and again, we forage for hope, like a stream meandering around rocks and making its way home. We arrive at church in all manner of difficult circumstances, just frankly needing a place to be real, to pray together and to eat hot dogs and to jump on the bouncy house. I hear, if you are anywhere under this tall, you can still get on. Just take your shoes off and don't bounce on any children. We are sad, and yet we sing. We are joyful, and yet we cry. We've heard it said that our joy is our sorrow unmasked and comes from the self-same cup. In this age of wisdom and foolishness, we gather here in our beloved church because the world is harsh, perhaps harsher now than it has ever been before in our lifetimes. The words of Psalm 139 speak through the ages. "Oh, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast." So here we are again in our new season of hope. Robin is not here, but we We are enough. We miss her. We will be so glad when she is back. And yet, we are it. We are the people who have come today to be the people for each other, with each other, and to reach out our love and the tendrils of our love into the hearts and the homes of anyone who didn't make it in today. Thank you for coming to church. We are here remembering, as we always do at home, coming, remembering, pulling all the pieces of our one body together. We're remembering one another, uniting and taking hands to be the people the world needs. You are the season of light, and together we are the people of God. Reuniting today, we speak of the family fellowship shared at our first Saturday lunches that are held all year long in our fellowship hall. We talk of the trust that grew in our OWL class, Our Whole Lives is for Teens, and how a bare church room with bare walls can be the safest place on earth, where you just get to be yourself and be liked for who you are. We send our compassion to each friend who's suffering by sending hand-painted cards made by the watercolor class, and soon one of those prayer shawls that's going to go out, and it will have been touched by every single person in this room, even though it took Rana to all the meandering to get to the back. We think of the Worcester Fellowship outdoor church community where our middle school youth serve lunch and share communion, meeting eye to eye as true children of God, whether housed or homeless this year. Our psalmist says, God, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. It is not God who needs tangible proof of light in the darkness, but we do. We tell about the fields of wind power we saw on our road trip. We tell about the young man whose best friend donated a kidney to him before it was too late. We tell of the veteran who became the best substitute teacher in the high school because he taught about real life and everyone knew it. We tell of Roger Saborin, who drove a van for kids with special needs to school, treating each one of those children with the dignity and kindness they deserve. No wonder they loved him. We tell about Jim Harper, the trainer of EMTs, still giving pointers to the EMTs in his ambulance as they transported him to hospital. There are so many boundaries that are human-made, keeping us separated by one demographic or another, by precinct or political party, by town or country borders. Church is a really good place to mix things up. We come together each fall to fight for clarity in an age of incredulity. Not long ago, in preparation for our water ceremony this morning, I took a walk around Walden Pond to gather some water from a favorite place. The sun was casting long shadows, and my shape made a shadow out on the water, and I could sense behind me a different shape that wasn't me, but yet it was moving just slightly, and I looked up to see a silent blue heron, and she was watching me very carefully. Her head was tipped to the side, and she seemed to be saying, "You're copying me." And I thought about how all the boundaries and separations we create are not natural ones. The earth divides things very differently. There were simply two creatures needing water, noticing one another. I stood with my feet in the water, thinking about all that's different in my own life from a year ago. My new child, as the psalmist said, was miraculously knit together in the waters of my own womb, which still seems thoroughly impossible. Yet every morning I wake up and Jesse's face is just so expectant and ready. He is so thrilled with each new day, and each way and moment to connect with me makes his whole face light up, and there's nothing like it. I've never met a person more present than a very young child. I mostly just can't believe he's real. Jim Harper had a habit of stopping me in the hallway before church and commenting on my gestation as if I were a patient in his veterinary clinic. And he definitely knew more about my pregnancy than I did. It was practical and tuned in and kind. He sort of sidled up and aligned our windows as if we were driving two cars down the highway, and I sort of pictured him he said, "Hey, pass the Grey Poupon," or something, like reaching out through the window. But he did know more about what was to happen, and he told me the exact day when Jesse would be flipping around to get to be heads down, and that really was right about then when I think that happened. And so I felt that he was somebody who understood the bigger picture, and that kind of person is someone who holds out a light ahead of us and we follow along in the footsteps. And I think in the end, we're all just walking each other home, and we get to be that for and with each other. The gift of time with one another cannot be replaced, and we know what happens when time is cut short. 2 days ago, when Roger passed, half the church, by blood or by marriage, lost a beloved family member. Isn't that the case? Everybody is related in some way to the Saborans. And the rest of us lost a dear friend. Roger, among other things, was our former church sexton, as Roy said, and he spent his life tending and fixing and nurturing. Roger was a weaver of our church tapestry, and the loss of him is an unraveling of sorts. So as we passed the ball of yarn from hand to hand a while ago, I pictured it as a mending in a way. We are all holding onto the skein of yarn just as someone else has put it down. We scramble a bit, but we get it tight between our fingers. We are interconnected. We are the people of God. We gather, we remember, and we knit ourselves together again. Today we meet as old friends. We welcome in new friends among us. We acknowledge the context of this age. It is the best of times. It is the worst of times. And yet, hope is timeless. Terrible situations can be faced, addressed, mourned, dispelled, and changed through time. The way that water smooths a stone. The kindness of strangers, the love of good friends, and the power of good-intentioned, well-organized groups does make all the difference in the world. This is why we return to religious community year after year, and why we welcome the new among us. We come to tell our stories, to listen with a loving heart, to find guidance again, or simply to find a way through. We return to First Church to remember, to pray, to give thanks, to forgive one another and ourselves, to work for a world made right, to love and be loved, to be and become. Here our waters mingle. The ocean refuses no river. We are gathered up and gathered in. May it be so. Amen.